not so much about an event as opposed to an awakening. Quite possibly, dear one, the word event and the word awakening might be similar in this case. For there is never just one event, dear ones. There are many events, if you choose to use that terminology where that is concerned. It is about, dear one, as we said to you earlier, it is about a grand awakening. And many are experiencing individual events in their life that are bringing them to a grand awakening of who they truly are. A grand awakening of their truth. A grand awakening of community, harmony, and equality. We are not so sure, dear ones, about what this event may be, for we do not have that information at this time. But what we can tell you, dear ones, is that you are moving, beginning in your month of April, to a grand awakening. A grand awakening in the depth and breadth of your heart space, and a grand awakening, dear ones, in the microcosm of your life, and the grand awakening in the macrocosm in your third dimensional realm. And what this grand awakening is, dear one, is about moving to the depth and breadth and core of who you are, and knowing that you are one with the universe, that you are one with others. It is about releasing the need to separate in duality. It is about coming together in a grand awakening in a new collective consciousness. A new collective consciousness of peace, community, harmony, and equality. It is important to understand, dear ones, that many in your third dimensional realm, as they move through these processes, or what you call, dear ones, your personal process, or what you call, dear ones, your spiritual life, that many, dear ones, move into this with an attachment, or many attachments, about what can transpire in their life in the third dimensional realm if they undertake doing this work, if they undertake moving on an inner soul journey. What is the attachment for me? What will I get in the third dimensional realm outside of myself if I undertake this personal process and move into an incremental step-by-step process of awakenings or events that happen inside of me, that are triggered outside of myself, that allow me to move into the fruition and the growth of who I truly am. It is important to understand that many hold a linear attachment to the third dimensional realm, that if I move within and open up the depth and my breadth of my heart space and begin to heal within, that the healing process, dear ones, is triggered by various events in your own personal life. To be aware of what the attachment may be outside of yourself. You see, dear ones, what transpires for many is the perpetuation of herd consciousness. The perpetuation of following the herd or following something outside of yourself, thinking that what is outside of yourself is greater than you. And simply seeking that. So many prey upon that, dear ones. The teachings, the messages, the energies that we can bring you, and many others bring you, is about moving into a greater empowerment of self. A greater empowerment of who you are. And it is through that process that various events will happen in your own personal life that will lead you to an awakening of who you are. An awakening of your greatness and an awakening of your powerfulness. So you can stand individuated as an individuated adult in charge of yourself and your life, fully moving to a greater level of loving, honoring, and valuing yourself. Yet, there are many who have attachments to that, if in fact I do this work, if in fact I follow this soul journey, if in fact I move on the path of the inner journey to a great awakening to who I am, what will this get me in the world outside of myself? So it is important, dear ones, to understand that there are no attachments to the personal process. It is not about, dear ones, an attachment to get something outside of yourself if in fact they do the personal work. It is about a moving in, dear ones, to a remembering and rediscovering of the greatness of you. And then formulating the reason why you are here, in service to the world outside of yourself. Many of you choose to form new modalities, new endeavors, to help others and support and guide others outside of yourself. This is standing in the powerfulness of self. If I stand in the powerfulness of me and express the beingness and the truth of who I am, this can affect others to move within, to move to a greater powerfulness and greatness of who they are. All, dear ones, through the resonance and vibration of love, of peace, community, harmony, equality, and all-inclusiveness. So this event that you speak about, dear ones, is a grand awakening to self. A grand awakening to a greater depth of self and a greater depth of love of self. And as you move deeper within to this grand awakening of self, a grand awakening to who you are, you will again form a new collective consciousness with like-minded individuals. And this grand awakening takes place within you in incremental periods of time that may be triggered by events in your life that you can see, dear one, the mirror that is held up to you. So what is transpiring in your world today, as we said to you, dear one, your month of April, is a grand awakening. It has been a slow process, quite possibly a tedious process for many. But what is transpiring now, dear ones, is a grand awakening of individuals to their greatness, their powerfulness, and their truth. And thus, dear ones, en masse, in collective consciousness, expressing that message and beginning a grand awakening in your third dimensional realm. But the awakening is, dear ones, that there is a new collective consciousness, and we are the messengers of that collective consciousness.